Okay, we managed to exceed expectations and are still here in Serie A.
Acknowledge me.
But with our regular commitments in Italian football and the UEFA Champions League on the horizon, we have got our work cut out for us. So let's get into what we did in the off-season. We started by agreeing to a whole new contract with Lorenzo Luca, and with the likes of Arsenal, PSG, and Man United sniffing around, better safe than sorry. We also extended a new contract to team captain Michele Colo-Colo, who has been a consistent part of our midfield. We then picked up quite a few new players in the transfer window, but the most important ones being 19-year-old winger Rune Bardgi from FC Copenhagen, a Polish region wingback Patrick Kawahur from Bayern, midfielder Chetan Dewar from Benfica, Torino defender Per Schurz, and we got ourselves a loan for Man City's region wonderkid striker Ben Beachy. But just as we bought players during the off-season, we ended up selling them as well. Players like Andrea Ristov, Panos Retsos, Connor Coventry, and after Thiago Giallo complained about wanting a new contract, Besiktas came to us with an offer of 12 million to get him, so I decided to let the Turks have him. But don't worry, with Schurz being signed, and Reggio Emilia's own youth prospect and Luigi Mascanzoni being ready to go for some game time, we're gonna be fine. The schedule does look stacked, but as it turns out, so are we, as we start the season off strong both in Serie A and in the Champions League, including a very strong win against last year's Scudetto winners in Napoli. But we do come down to earth a little bit with losses against Fiorentina and an Antonio Conte-led Roma. We then end up getting Tottenham Hotspur in the Champions League next, and we draw 0-0. That's certainly a sign for us to beat up the absolute living daylights out of Sassuolo again. Seriously, the beatings will not stop until either we kick them off of our stadium or we build a new one for ourselves because we're that much bigger than them. Just saying. We end up carrying that momentum all the way through the rest of October and through December in both Serie A and Champions League games. That said, in the Champions League, the games do prove that while we can deal with certain European clubs like CLR Cluj and Red Bull Salzburg, we're still a ways away from the elite clubs in Europe as the draws against Dortmund and Real Madrid showcase. So after the holiday season and into January, we start the month off against AC Milan. So we lose 3-2 and our unbeaten streak of 3 months or so gets broken. This team really is our boogeyman. Thankfully, we managed to survive against Juventus only a few days later and then shifted our focus to the Coca-Cola Super Cup final against Napoli. The match itself is a back-and-forth affair as we get first blood from a Ruan goal in the 40th minute, but Kivica Kvaratskhelia evens it up in the second half. Neither team can end it in 90 minutes, so we go to extra time, where it's none other than Lorenzo Luca capitalizing on some incredibly shoddy defending by Napoli to score in the 102nd minute, and then allowing us to hold on for dear life as we win our first trophy of the season. We wrap up January with a pair of ties against Genoa and against Ajax in the Champions League. We then wrap up the month by beating Cagliari and RB Leipzig. With February set to be our busiest month to date in fixtures as of yet, the winter transfer window is quieter than the usual, but we do get some deals done with Juan going over to Atletico Madrid on the transfer. We get Pablo Torre from Barcelona, Dominic Haas from Liverpool on loan, and Leo Zom from Palmeiras, who's a future prospect for us. February also means the knockout stages of the Champions League are here, and we draw RB Leipzig. And we get to do it without our star goalkeeper, who is injured for the next 3 to 4 weeks. Great. We also do finally get our start in the Coppa Italia as we enter in the third round of the competition and dispatch Serie B side Cittadella fairly easily while rotating our side, as we do have a Serie A rematch against Napoli on deck. And it does take a 91st minute Jacopo da Riva goal off of a set piece that initially hit the post to get us the draw to keep us in pace with Napoli, AC Milan, Inter Milan, Juventus, and Roma. The remainder of February does see us continue our form as we handle our business in the Coppa Italia quarterfinals against Udinese, They ended up drawing 1-1 against RB Leipzig in their house before winning 2-1 in ours to advance to the round of 16 in the Champions League. That said, we do get Michele Colio back from injury now as March is coming up, and Rooney is closer and closer to beating Paneman's assist record.
Ja, vi laver 20 mål, og du laver 20 assists, men ja, 20 assists måske, ja.
Thus, we end up getting Inter Milan as our round of 16 opponents in the Champions League. So the fixtures in March get moved around to where we end up getting 3 out of our next 4 games against them to start the month. We deal with Lecce and Inter in the Serie A games to start the month, but to Inter Milan's credit, they won the first leg of the round of 16 in the Champions League 2-1 in our home, meaning that now we've got to go into the San Siro and get a result there if we want to keep this unlikely run of results going in the Champions League. Malang Sarr getting injured and then a boring 0-0 draw to Fiorentina isn't exactly the kind of momentum or inspiring performances that we would be looking for heading into hostile territory. But Kasper Paneman and Lorenzo Luca do come through with the few chances we get in the second leg, and we do end up beating Inter Milan to head to the Champions League quarterfinals. Right. Of course we get Barcelona.
Your thoughts? What?
Right, so with our semifinal games for the Coppa Italia announced to take place in early April against Atalanta, we handle our business against relegation side Reggiana, and then go into April starting off strong by beating Atalanta twice in a row between the first leg of the Coppa Italia semifinal and in Serie A, which lets us continue to keep pace with the other big teams for the top positions. We're overperforming once again as our XG standings actually have us in 11th place, but the actual standings have us in 3rd place, so you know what?
We ball.
Right, so we've got Barcelona on deck for the quarterfinals. And in general, they're still stacked for a team that owes 9 figures is worth still in this universe. Nevertheless, we go into the game. It's a 1-1 draw going into it, but in the 81st minute,
Lewandowski goes for it again! Oh, you just can't do it! You just cannot be that good!
So, how do you bounce back from a tough loss in a Champions League leg against a team that's drenched in that tournament's history? You beat up your local rivals, which is what we do to Parma. Again. But the second leg of the Champions League is soon after that, and thus, we've got to overcome a 1-goal deficit at Camp Nou to even attempt to advance. And while Paneman provides an early goal at the 11th minute mark, Gavi ties it up 2 minutes later. But then in the 42nd minute, everything changes.
Get him off the field!
The dynamic of this game is flipped on its head. Barcelona's down a man, and while they hold strong in the second half, goals from our captain Michele Colocolo and Lorenzo Luca are more than enough to overturn the first leg defeat and for us to escape Spain with perhaps the biggest victory in team history.
What's next? Give me something else. What can't you do? I can do it. I can do anything.
Oh, this really doesn't get any easier, does it?
Wow. I set really high standards, did I?
Alright, we'll deal with them in due time. Let's focus on what's ahead of us first. Serie A-wise, we handle Empoli and Torino with a pair of clean sheets, and then a draw in the second leg of the Coppa Italia against Atalanta is more than enough to move us forward into the final through the aggregate results. We didn't get the Champions League semifinals first leg, which is a draw. We had the lead for most of it, but then Darwin Núñez decided to actually hit the net for once in his life, and now we gotta go to Anfield for a do-or-die game. But hey, we've made it to the last month of the season. A month where we'll be traveling to Liverpool to try to continue the Cinderella-esque run in the Champions League. A month of crucial games to Serie A title hopes for at least 6 different teams, ours included. And then one final game against Inter Milan, except this time it's for the Coppa Italia. Seriously, is every team in Milan just meant to make my life miserable during this stint? We start the month off against Sassuolo, with us as the away team, and we do beat them up yet again. And that win alone is enough for ownership to 100% back me up on my annual request to improve our training and youth facilities, so that's neat. But the time is finally here though. A trip to Anfield, the second leg of the Champions League semi-final against Liverpool, and the game itself is the purest definition of chaos. Somehow, this thing is 3-3 by the end of regular time. Nobody can find results in extra time, and thus we go to penalty kicks, where Liverpool bottles it like it's 2014 all over again. And by hook and by crook, Luigi Mascanzoli kicks the winning PK into the net, and AC Reggiana, for the first time in history, advances to the Champions League final. Wait a second. Why do I hear boss music? Oh, we're just gonna ignore the impeding meteor for now, because the motivation of making it to the Champions League final itself is more than enough to push the boys through the rest of May, as we come through in crucial Serie A games with wins against Lazio, a come-from-behind win against Juventus, and that leads us into the Coppa Italia final against Inter Milan with that beautiful, beautiful trophy yet again in sight. Lorenzo Luca gets the memo, and he proceeds to put on a show, getting a hat-trick in the process and winning us our second straight Coppa Italia.
They said it might have disappeared. They said that somewhere over yonder it could never exist again. Yet we all know one thing: the power game is back! Oh, all the days of joy and happiness.
This also means we have a double now for the season with the Super Cup win earlier in the year. Pretty neat. But there's no rest for the wicked, as we head straight into a game against AC Milan, with Napoli being 3 points behind us in the Serie A standings. Beating them at this point would be absolutely huge, and 2 early goals against them puts us in the right path. And it looks like we're gonna escape with a victory here just fine.
Unit lost.
God damn it!
Losing Luca to a broken foot for these final couple of games in the season is not going to be easy, but it's on the rest of the team to come together and pull through, as we have 2 games left in Serie A. Udinese is a chippy affair, but Panamen's goal in the 40th minute is enough for the clean sheet and the win, with Napoli stumbling in the finish line and trailing 3 points behind us. With only 1 game left to go, all that we need to do is win or draw against Genoa to claim our first ever Scudetto. And thanks to Ben Beach's efforts, scoring a hat-trick to help us win 4-1, we do it. AC Reggiana gets its first taste of Serie A glory as we win the Scudetto for the first time in franchise history. It's an accomplishment that exceeds any and all expectations that were placed on us by our board and by our supporters before the season even began. But one that proves that the strategies and the players that we've brought in here, they're more than capable of executing. Needless to say, I am beyond proud of the boys. But all roads do lead us to a historic Champions League final in the Netherlands. We either fall short of the mark and the Cinderella run ends at midnight on the dot, or we somehow take this whole thing and complete an unlikely quadruple by usurping England's final boss. And while the game itself is a struggle as Man City pepper us with shot after shot, we do end up finding an unlikely goal in the 45th minute via Man City's own wonder kid, on loan to us, finding a pass to Michele Colo-Colo, who buries it onto the back of the net. We are 45 minutes away from glory. 45 minutes away from winning the Champions League.
Is that what I think it is?
You didn't think it was going to be that easy, did you?
You know, for a second there? Yeah, I kind of did.
And just like that, the clock struck midnight. It's disappointing, sure, to come this close and yet be so far from the ultimate prize. But we just need to pick up the pieces, and we can make another run at this again. Still, overall, a fantastic season by the club. AC Reggiana is finally been revived, and now it is our time to conquer. Oh, what the f***?